So, how is the racism in Germany? Let's get into it. I'm Nantle. I'm South African, but I've been living in Germany for over 15 years. And as a black woman and an African immigrant, one of the most frequently asked questions I receive on a daily basis is how's the racism in Germany?
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen.
Right, so in today's episode, we're going to be featuring a black immigrant African woman who moved to Germany, and she's gonna be talking to us about her experience living in Germany and the racism she faced while living there. But even at that, she says South Africa, which is her original country, was the country that had the most racism, and she was treated badly while there.
Right, and you know, white South Africans have been accused of being racist to a point where white Australians refused for white South Africans to be migrating to Australia just because of how racist they are.
Right.
And they further went on to categorize them as the most racist white group in the whole world.
Right, but guys, what are we talking about? Let's hear her experience and why she was saying this, and then we come back and talk about it. You can also let us know your thoughts and opinion about this episode on the comment section. Also consider subscribing if it's your first time here, right? Let's watch and then we come back and talk about it.
So, how is the racism in Germany? Let's get into it. I'm Nantle. I'm South African, but I've been living in Germany for over 15 years. And as a black woman and an African immigrant, one of the most frequently asked questions I receive on a daily basis is how's the racism in Germany? So, are they racist in Germany? Yes, they are. Have I experienced racism in Germany? Yes, I have. Do I experience racism or discrimination daily or regularly in Germany? No, I don't. Do I, as a black person and as an African immigrant living in Germany, feel unsafe in Germany? No, I don't. I've lived here in Germany for almost 16 years, and in that entire time, I've experienced the violent, life-threatening type of racism only once. I used to work in a theater, and on some days the show would end at around 11 p.m. So this one evening, I was on my way home. It's around 11:30 p.m., and I'm in the city about to catch my bus home. And out of nowhere, this drunk man starts hurling racial insults at me. I was shook. I was scared because there was no one else around. So even if I did scream for help, nobody would have been able to help me. Thankfully, I was unharmed. He did not physically attack me, and I made it home safe. So that was the one time that I experienced what I would call life-threatening racism in Germany. What I sometimes do experience or observe are microaggressions. A lot of German drugstores and beauty stores do not stock foundation for women of color. One of my very first viral TikToks is of me trying to buy foundation in one of the biggest German beauty stores. At the time, Lupita Nyong'o was the brand ambassador for Lancôme. I'm not sure if she still is. I walk into the store and I ask the sales assistant if they have a Lancôme foundation for my skin tone. And she explicitly says to me, they only have foundation for Europeans. She uttered this so nonchalantly that I doubt that she even realized what she was implying, which was that only white people are Europeans. This is despite there being Europeans of all ethnicities and all skin tones. There are so many black people who were born in Europe and who have been in Europe for multiple generations. Now, besides that, I've never been declined entrance to a venue, for example, a club, as I have been in South Africa. I have never been declined dining in a restaurant and told that the restaurant is fully booked even though there were empty tables, something I've also experienced in South Africa. I have been stopped by the police for speeding, but I've never been harassed by the police in Germany. I've also never been followed around in a shop or treated in a suspicious manner. Now, this is not to say that these things do not happen in Germany. There have been numerous reports of police brutality towards Black people and other people of color. There have been people who have been declined entrance to clubs. There have been people who've said that they were treated with suspicion, whether it was at the airport or it was at a shop. This is why I've always been skeptical of answering this question about racism in Germany, because there is a danger of sounding like I am invalidating other people's experiences or just being delusional. It sounds weird even just saying that the only racism I often experience or witness are microaggressions, because microaggressions are still racism. And what is the right amount of racism? Like, how do you measure racism? What is too much racism? What is just enough racism? But because the question of racism has been asked so many times, my assumption as someone who has never been to Germany is that you want to know if, as a Black person, you would be safe or you are most likely to be harmed in Germany. I cannot guarantee that if you come to Germany, you will definitely experience racism, and I cannot say that you will not experience racism. Just last week, it was reported that the German far-right party is planning a mass deportation of non-ethnic Germans, so non-white Germans, if they ever came into power. This is a minority party. They are similar to like Action SA or the VF in South Africa. And although this party does not currently have any significant power in Germany, Germans took this threat very seriously. And since the report was publicized, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Germans across the country have been protesting against racism, against neo-Nazism, and they have been calling for a total ban of this party. This video was taken yesterday afternoon in the city of Hamburg. That's where I live, where over 100,000 people as far as the eye can see, shut down the entire city center on a Friday afternoon because they do not want racism in Germany. And as I've already said, these protests have been taking place all over the country since last week because many Germans, millions of Germans, are anti-racism. This far right-wing party is proof that they are racists, there is racism, and there is neo-Nazism in Germany. But the fact that for the last week there have been millions of Germans who have been protesting and calling for a total ban of this party is also proof that there are Germans who are against racists, they are against racism, and they are against Nazism. There are Black people who have visited Germany or lived in Germany who will tell you that they experience a lot of racism in Germany. Believe them. There are Black people who have visited Germany, who have lived in Germany, who will tell you that they have not experienced a lot of racism in Germany. Believe them. Because all we can ever do is to share our truths based on our lived experiences. And that's why if you've watched any of my other videos, I always repeatedly say that there is no perfect country. There is only a country that is perfect for you. Because just like we don't experience people the same way, we also do not experience countries the same way. It's like I've lived in America, and during my time of studying there, I didn't experience racism. I didn't experience police brutality. But we read about these things all the time in the news. And just because I did not experience it does not mean that it's not a reality. Or with crime in South Africa. Yes, there is crime in South Africa, but I was in South Africa a couple of weeks ago and I did not experience any crime, but that does not mean that there is no crime in South Africa. So I hope this video gives some sort of nuanced perspective to the question of racism in Germany. Yeah.
So guys, welcome back. Let us know what you think about the episode you just played in the comment section. You know, one thing I can say is, I feel like the community she was talking to, she's a creator on TikTok, but South African born and raised, yeah. She was talking to people who are concerned about moving to Germany and people who are asking about how the level of racism is in Germany, because being that we normally see a lot of cases from America, people were curious about the same, you know. And I feel like Okay, she gave us a little snippet about what happens in South Africa, and to be honest, I would say that I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised because I remember we once did an episode about a Black American who went into a certain store in South Africa, and it was Chinese owned, yeah, and the way he was treated there, he knew exactly what it was, and that was racism, because that exact Chinese person treated his white clients differently from how he treated this Black American brother, you know.
Right, but overall, as most people always say, I feel like racism has the same face everywhere, and Black people are usually at the receiving end of this stick, you know. And it makes me wonder sometimes, what if tables were turned and Black people started discriminating white people because of their skin, because of their lack of melanin?
Right.
What if Black people had the upper hand and they're the ones who started being racist towards, you know, palm-colored people and separating them from the herd just because they were white?
Right. And you know, guys, when she talked about her being denied entry to certain places in South Africa because of the color of her skin, I feel like this does not only happen in South Africa, only that South Africa has more of these cases because they have predominantly a huge, let's say, percentage of white settlers there compared to any other country in Africa. But I've also heard about this in Kenya, in this our own country, Kenya, where they talk about these touristic regions. Let's say, for example, the coastal areas or certain places in the city where expatriates live who happen to be white. You know, the locals there just, for example, let's take the service industry, hotel industry, right? There are people who've been accused, certain establishments that have been accused of mistreating its own locals who are Black because they want to serve white people because they believe white people give them better tips, you know.
Right. And coming back to this woman's point, I do feel like, in as much as personally she hasn't experienced a lot of racism cases, but the ones that she experienced were significant enough for her to remember,
notice,
I do
yeah.
feel like her case is exceptional because once, I don't know if it was DW, the news channel. I don't know if it was DW that did a documentary on how Black Germans, get me right, not immigrants, but Black Germans, meaning these are Black populations of Germany that were born and raised, and their ancestry dates back to time immemorial. So they were doing a documentary of how those people are treated.
Even the biracials in those countries,
yes,
in
even
Germany.
the biracials in Germany. And I did feel like their situation was very similar to Black Americans. The only difference was Black American plight is hard more than the Black German plight because they don't come out to speak about it more often than not.
It's like because they're Black, they normally are just in Germany, they're more quiet.
Yes.
Right? And they just keep to their own corner.
Communities and corners.
Right. But I feel like Black Americans, they band together to talk about these issues, and they know how to fight for themselves. And the white community there know that Black Americans are gonna put up a fight. But guys, if you can search about documentaries about how Black Germans are treated in Germany, I feel like you will be able to get the point where we are saying her case is very exceptional. But if you get to hear from Black Germans, you will get to know the whole scope of how they're treated there, you know, because they were talking about a certain time where attacks on Black Germans was rampant just because they were
attacks, like physical attacks,
right?
Yeah.
Just because they happened to be Black, you know.
And in these documentaries you'd see white Germans as young as 11 years old,
right.
carrying weapons and charging towards grown Black people,
right,
just because they had different color of skin.
Right. So you can imagine having to live your life like that. So I don't believe that Germany, I mean South Africa is more racist because how can you measure or how can you compare, as she was asking. Only that I feel like for her case was, should we say, unique to her, because for her, she only happened to experience extreme racism in her own country. I feel like because she lived there more and she saw how white people behave there.
Although she's lived in Germany for 15 years.
15 years is a long time.
Let's just say she lived in a good area where people were civil.
But who knows, the microaggressions are still
Yes,
there.
there, and also maybe they're a bit more better at hiding their characters as compared to South African whites.
Right. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think about this episode on the comment section. Also consider subscribing if it's your first time here, and we'll catch you on our next episode.